We're back with another episode of The Real Grill, and today we're discussing the movie Breaking. So the movie stars John Boyega, and it's a true story about a Brian Brown Easley, who was an ex-Marine, who tries to expose the injustice he suffered at the hands of the VA, or Veterans Association, due to its bureaucratic nature. The movie definitely delivers on the emotional depth of the characters and the whole accuracy surrounding what happened. I think it happened in 2017, if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, it's a must-see for anyone who wants to get kind of a different or in-depth perspective about what ex-vets goes through. So definitely, I would recommend checking it out, hands down. It was enjoyable to watch, but also very painful at the same time. Definitely hit some emotional tones with me and everyone else in our group. So without further ado, I give you Breaking.
Oh yeah, so we're talking about, what's it, Breaking? This is like a thriller / drama. It's based on a true story. I can't remember. I can't remember the guy's full name. Was it Brian
Brown Easley.
Brian Brown Easley. That's it. So he's like a ex-vet, honorably discharged, and he's basically decided to take it upon himself to, seize a bank, take it hostage, and he's probably the most politest, well-mannered, most humble bank robber, to be honest. Actually, he's not really a bank robber. He's literally
he's not. A hostage taker. Just getting what he's owed. He's basically trying to get his own money back.
Exactly.
Really.
Exactly. Yeah. His disability checks from the veterinary. What was it called? The VA? I can't remember.
Yeah, the VA. Yeah, the Veterans Association or something.
Yeah.
It's called now, yeah.
That's the one, exactly.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, obviously we just follow the events on Ravel as it goes from basically him initiating this whole situation to obviously the news and the media getting involved, and obviously the police, and you basically just got this whole media storm being generated around this whole event. And it's a very tragic. It's not really a surprise, but it's a very tragic and very sort of kind of painful experience to watch. And obviously, you really feel, you can really put yourself in each of these characters' shoes and understand how they're feeling, what they're going through, and in a way kind of relate with them and their experiences. Is there anything that you guys wanted to add on top of that?
Well, I think knowing it's a true story is what it hit for. Is that continue reminding yourself this all really happened.
Sure.
And it kind of, constantly reminds you of all the injustices that happen in the world daily, especially for people of color and stuff. So yeah, just knowing that, it definitely hits harder.
Yeah, and I think the name is very appropriate. This isn't, as you said, Peter, this isn't just a bank robber movie. It's based on a true story. The main character, who's based on a real life person, isn't even really a bank robber. And I think the movie is really representative of all the probably vets and people who go through kind of a similar stressful life experience and reach that breaking point. I think that's why the main character and probably the real life person is you can kind of be so empathetic and sympathetic towards him, because it really is about reaching that breaking point where he felt like there was nothing else he could do.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it also touches on the theme of the mistreatment of soldiers in the army, in the armed forces, and how they're treated once they return, and how they are just reacclimatized to normal civilian life, and how they're not really looked after once they're of no use to the army anymore. And a lot of soldiers come back with mental disorders that aren't usually either treated appropriately or looked after, because that was part of the problem as well, is that this guy, he also had mental disorders as well that didn't help, that also contributed to where he ended up. I think he was a paranoid schizophrenic as well, and he had stopped taking his meds, which was part of the reason why I think his marriage broke up. I think it does touch on how powerless and helpless people are to help people who return from the armed forces, because in a way, you need them to help themselves in terms of taking their medication, but you can't force them to. And then you can see the paranoia build up. And then on top of that, there are injustices he suffers that he doesn't have the power to fight against. And that's why he takes matters into his own hands like this.
Sure, yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and like, you know, bringing up the fact that obviously he has the mental issues. I like that the film doesn't like come out and say, oh, you know, this guy is, you know, he's not well. He's like mentally unstable. But it does give you those puzzle pieces to kind of like, it gives you that sense of, oh, okay, this is what's going on, but you're not outright telling me. So I can kind of piece that together myself. And obviously, it's slowly the way it like sort of reveals his backgrounds, because it doesn't start with him in the military. You kind of see that later on. That's what his background is. That's where it comes from. Did anyone else get the sense that in the beginning, like he might have just been making it up? As in, even his bag didn't really look like it had anything in it. I thought, oh,
yeah.
All right, yeah.
Because when they jumped the camera, he didn't really treat the bag like it had anything in it.
Yeah, that's the thing.
Yeah, he wasn't moving like he was carrying explosives.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But I mean, everyone's seen the movie and stuff, innit? So obviously, like you find out at the end that the bomb isn't even real, right?
Do you?
I mean, there wasn't a bomb. All it was like a remote.
Yeah, it was just a remote. Yeah, so yeah, there was no.
Is it specifically said it's not a bomb? Because you see the machine carry it to the bomb disposal, but
well, they just have to. They
can't check it.
Yeah, they have to treat it as if it's real.
Yeah.
Well, there was no bomb in there. He just had that remote. There was
Yeah.
no semblance or anything.
And out of curiosity, had anyone heard about this particular case, this story, prior to watching the film? Because I hadn't.
No, nothing. I had no idea.
I had heard about it vaguely, but I didn't. Like, I know a guy in Washington that had done this. I remember hearing the story, but I didn't look. So I didn't know any details. I didn't know his name, but I just remember coming across it on the internet at some point.
Right, just to show you how important these movies are to just get these stories out there, because else, like a lot of us would not have known about this awful injustice that happened.
Exactly.
Yeah, and I also appreciate, because obviously after the movie, I actually wanted to see, because a lot of movies like this, because it's a movie, they tend to sensationalize parts to make it more entertaining for the moviegoer. So I wanted to see how much of this was true, how much was embellished, and I do like the fact that they didn't try to Hollywood it up. They just told the story as accurately as they could, which I also appreciate, because a lot of movies based on a true story basically are night and day from what actually happened. They just happen to have the same people or the same sort of key points. Whereas this, pretty much all of the key points they covered, I think, did actually happen, which is even sadder, really.
I think
because like usually they add like unnecessary drama or like, you know, unnecessary action and stuff, which, you know, is out of place. But in this, you can tell there was none of that. It was all just for the story, just for the character, for the real person, and they just treated that story of Brian very well.
Only thing I'd say.
I was gonna say even the fact that it didn't even have a soundtrack. You know what I mean? There was nothing distraction. It was all just about the dialogue, the character, and what you get away from the story. Even the fact that there was a soundtrack, it really actually got me more immersed in the actual situation than if they had added like a sad song or a soundtrack to get you feeling that emotion. I actually found it was better without one.
Yeah, it was more like ambient. It was more like sort of ambient sort of backgrounds to accentuate the mood of like, you know, the scenes and like the tension to kind of like play on the tension. You were saying kind of how it doesn't embellish the truth, but they show a photograph of the actual guy at the end, and he's like nothing like John Boyega. Like obviously John Boyega is like, you know, very very sort of chiseled, very much in shape, and the guy was just like completely night and day from that. I mean, obviously it's like a small nitpick.
Google him, I think they picked a strange image, but if you Google him, I think he's a bit more chiseled and stuff. I think.
Oh, is it? Oh, okay.
You can see that.
I think I saw a picture of him from when he was in the service.
Okay.
Yeah.
So maybe they tried to go for that kind of depiction.
Possibly.
But yeah. But yeah, man, I don't know about you guys here, but the dialogue like really made me feel stuff at certain parts, man. At some points I felt angry, at some points I actually felt my eyes tearing up, man. Like the scenes where he's talking to the negotiator and they're having those conversations, and the negotiator is almost trying to reassure him that, you know, you matter, you do have worth, you do have value. And his kind of response the whole way through is, I'm worth nothing, you know, I don't have value, that kind of thing. And that was, he didn't change from that viewpoint, the character, I mean, throughout the whole movie, which I thought, for me watching it, was quite sad and depressing, man. That really kind of kept hitting me, that obviously you do get people who see themselves that way. It was quite sad to watch on screen, and I thought Boyega done a really fantastic job of making it, you know, he was believable in his acting.
He was incredible. Honestly, this is probably his performance like peak in terms of like, you know, really showing us what this guy's been going through, and, you know, portraying his mental anguish, as well as, because he does such a good job at showing that dichotomy between being, you know, really respectful, being calm. Even on the phone, there's a customer calls up and she's like, you know, I need to sort out my 401k, and he's like, oh, don't worry, we'll get you sorted, man. And he's like, yeah, just being really respectful. And then like 5
which
seconds,
actually happened as well. That is actually true.
Oh, really?
Okay. Okay.
I didn't make that up.
Really?
He done multiple. It wasn't just one as well.
Yeah, it's crazy. And then like, because I was even thinking, is this guy kind of bipolar as well? Because like a couple of seconds later, he's like screaming his head off, like, you know, he's like got this fiery temper, which just comes out of nowhere almost. So I just thought, wow, this guy's fantastic. Like there was time, because obviously I'm not trying. It's not a diss for the film, but I was kind of half awake sometimes because it's a very slow moving.
It definitely started off very slow.
Right, yeah. So I was kind of nodding off a little bit, and then obviously when he would just like explode with that anger and that, you know, that temper, I would just be like jolted awake, and I was like, wow, like this guy's really trying to go for that Oscar. So I hope he.
What I did want to mention is that the bits where he would scream himself is because like a lot of the points was because he just things weren't moving as fast as he wanted it to. He was told to keep waiting and stuff, which I think reminded him of all the times that he's been in, like, you know, various associations talking to people, and they're telling him, oh, can you wait? Can you wait in that line? All this kind of stuff. So every time he's told to wait, it triggers that, and it's just really annoys him and makes him
scream. I want to go back to what Ruben was saying about the conversation with the interrogator. That feeling that he had of worthlessness is one that you could see that is how the veterans are treated when they're back. They're just a number. They come back and they're not really cared for. They're just, you're lie up here, this is what you're getting, and they don't really listen to them.
They're marginalized. They're the marginalized part of society, really. Right? No, just overlooked and just unheard. So
and I think what you said, Peter, about they don't really give you the full picture. Obviously, at the beginning, they kind of give you these breadcrumbs and let you infer things, and then kind of confirm it for you later. So even the fact that he was in the army, you're not told that at the beginning. Like you kind of start to infer that yourself, like, that this could be about like a vet. And then obviously it's revealed later on. And then obviously when you see what happened to him at the VA with when he goes for his money, you don't straight away see the fact that when he leaves the office and you see that the room's full of lots of other people potentially in similar situations, but you don't see at that point how he was treated when he was leaving, that he was thrown on the ground. I think he was put in handcuffs, his glasses broke. You don't see that a bit until a bit later on. So it's like they keep feeding you these little things that kind of almost justify exactly why he is acting the way he is acting now. You don't get the full picture at the beginning, which I kind of thought was a pretty good way to do it. Almost like, you're constantly finding out something new about this character and all things that happened to him recently. This isn't like over the course of like, these are all, I think, quite recent things that had happened to him. He had that bruise on his face, which I think was quite, supposed to be quite a recent bruise, and then you find out how he got it. So that was quite a fantastic choice they made to do it that way.
One of the scenes that got me was there's one where the I can't remember which newscaster it was, where she went to one of the universities and they said that when it comes to debts, they take what they can get, and the VA should have stopped that, and they didn't. So it was actually the VA's fault that he was in that situation.
Yeah. Was it the I didn't understand it too. Was it they were saying that the college is it the college notifies the VA or vice versa that someone isn't finishing their course.
Yes, I think what it's saying is when you leave without finishing, they just take the money. Well, they take what they can get, so they'll notify whoever's got his money and just say this needs to be paid. But according to what he was saying earlier, that had been paid already, so the VA should not have given his money.
Yeah, but then the lady says the lady says it wasn't even like it wasn't. She said that the kicker is it wasn't even him. So I'm not sure if that meant like,
that's what they said. Yeah,
it was a complete fumble. Yeah, there's a line she said, and I had to rewind it because I was like, what does that mean? I thought it meant like it was a complete blunder on their part. Potentially, what happened to him wasn't even supposed to be about him. It was about like another student, a complete mess up. And I think it just adds to that real kicker, especially when you get to the end. And true stories do it a lot, and it always hits me like when you see it like this is still ongoing. No apologies been issued, no kind of rectification. Well, I'm not sure if there was an apology. Maybe there was.
I mean, at the end they did say that they still haven't paid that.
Yeah.
So I actually looked into it because I wanted to see what actually was the truth. Was it actually his fault? And it seems it's one of those situations where you could have innocent actors in all parts of the system, but still come out with an unjust outcome. So it seems what's happened is that because he didn't go to his college course, his tuition, his payment was recouped to cover the course that he missed, and there was paperwork that he needed to fill out in order to resolve the tuition issue, but because of his dire circumstances, he wasn't in a stable address. He kept moving. He had to keep moving around because in the movie we see he was living in a motel at the end, and so he kept bouncing around. So the likelihood is that the letter that was informing of this probably got sent to one of his previous addresses, and it just never reached him, and therefore the issue could never get resolved. And you would hope that it could go to the VA to resolve that, but it doesn't seem to be the way that process works. And I think that is why it's just never been paid back, is because I think there's something that the claimant would need to fill out in order to get that done. Because there's just so much bureaucracy involved in all these sorts of things. It's not as simple as just writing someone a check and giving it to them, because it's government funded. So it's you have to have those checks and balances in place. So I think the movie does a good job of showing that in pretty much all of the movies, there isn't actually a bad person, a bad guy. Everyone involved, even the guy who shot him at the end, you could see from his point of view, with the information he had an opportunity to save those hostages, and he decided to take it. However, he did go against policy, but had he not taken that shot and that guy actually had a bomb and was unstable and blew up, then he'd be thinking, well, why didn't I take that shot when I had it? So you could feel everyone in the situation were just doing the jobs, it led to a sad, unjust outcome, unfortunately.
I mean, he even predicted his own death as well. Like he was like, I know how
they're gonna shoot me.
Yeah, exactly. So it kind of played out the way I don't think it was a thing where he was not expected to get out alive. So
I mean, the thing is, he did have some hope for a bit, because Estelle, where she gave it the still speech that I can't let you die. I really don't want you to die. Like what am I going to tell my son, kind of thing. Remember that bit? Which, by the way, amazing performance from her, whoever the actress is, because she was incredible as well. She held her own there. So I think, and then the teardrop fell on his and stuff. So I think at that point he did have some hope, but then everything played out the way it did, unfortunately.
And the thing is, you say obviously nobody was really, there was no real villain here. Obviously everybody was just kind of doing their job, doing what their role required. But it's fascinating how obviously this film frames it from the main character's perspective. So he is by default the the one that you kind of root for, the one that you kind of feel the most remorse and empathy for, I guess. Even though again, this film could be framed from any of these characters' perspectives, and you would probably feel for that individual character. But obviously, they've chosen to tell his story in particular.
The reason why there's no actual, because it's not a story that's trying to paint it, it's just trying to point out the flaws in the system.
Yeah.
That's it. Yeah.
Because the thing is, even though it wasn't anybody's fault directly, people could have tried harder. The VA definitely could have tried harder to.
I mean, I'm not stressed that at the beginning because obviously he's calling us, asking for an interrogator, and they're just
negotiator. It surprises me. Like, I mean, this is probably what I'm going to say isn't maybe realistic, but it surprised me. And again, they're keeping it to the truth. But in that situation, like, obviously you've got the negotiator whose job is to get the hostages out alive, and even the person who's doing the crime out alive as well. It's also part of their job. But it surprises me that, like, no one actually even tried to, in these situations, tries to contact the VA or tries to figure out, has there been some kind of injustice which has led this person to do this. It's all focused on what is actually happening at the scene of the crime, and the fact that that conversation you have between the lady at the VA and the reporter is just a conversation between them, which everyone else isn't privy to that conversation. It's just the viewer. We're privy to it. No one else is privy to it.
It's probably one of those systems where there's no specific one person you can call at the VA to get this sorted.
Yeah. The lady who had seen him on TV just happened to go and speak to the reporter. But yeah, it's frustrating to watch.
From the police's point of view, it's not something that you would want to encourage. It's not the police's job to try and meet the terrorist demands, if you see what I'm saying.
They get them out.
Well, yeah. But I mean, from a negotiator perspective, again, this is like people have their professions that you would need to be in the profession to really know the ins and outs. But just looking at it from the outside, from someone less experienced, or no experience obviously as well, you would think that at the very least it could be a reasonable bargaining chip for them to know, like, we're listening to you. Do you know what I mean? We are listening to you. This goes beyond just, let's just get the hostages and you're alive. Like, there needs to be some kind of understanding as to why this is happening, so we can in the future, make sure it happens less. I would never say it doesn't happen again. That's impossible. It happens less. Treat them, make them know that he's treated like a human being. And I think that's the thing. It comes back to the fact that he kept saying he has no worth, and even, he died believing that, which is a really sad part of the movie, that he died believing that. So I would have, that hit me.
Yeah, it's really powerful, man. It's a really powerful message, actually. That obviously,
but you also have to remember that we're looking at outside of a movie. Yeah. From the police's point of view, there's a psycho with a bomb, trying to rob it. So, like, the sympathy they're gonna have is not gonna be. It's gonna be they're trying to understand. They're trying to sort like do their best to get the hostage out as quickly as possible. And I think it did do a good job of portraying how probably this situation probably would play out more realistic, because typically, like, in hostage movies, like, I think we see a far more dramatic and dramatized version where, they're having these very smart conversations with the guy robbing the bank and trying to meet their demands and stall for time and all this. And I think in real life, it's probably not as seamless as that. There's probably, like, the FBI was there, but also the Georgia Bureau of Investigation was also there. And there's probably a lot of conflicting entities that are probably butting heads trying to resolve the issue. It probably, and it showed in the movie because of how long it took to get a negotiator there. And it was quite funny that one of the hostage girl was on the phone the entire time just saying, "Are you not doing anything?" Like, it's just, and this monotone voice of the operator which just started to piss me off. I was like, "You don't even show a little empathy. I'm currently stuck in a bank with a guy who says he has a bomb, and you're just giving me this monotone, just stay up there, unfeeling responses like a robot." Like, it's
I wasn't even sure what was I wasn't even sure. Like, I obviously they were doing, from the point the phone call was made, they were presumably putting things in motion, but from the viewer's perspective,
we can see,
you're starting to think, like, man, are they thinking this is a prank call? Are they just not taking it seriously?
Because every time they showed the door, there's no movement outside. Driving by, and a guy tried to get into the bank. It was just like, are you not just letting people walk up to the door?
Definitely. Also, the fact that the people, the other employees who left, presumably would have made their own phone calls to the police as well. Because they were told it was the emergency situation. So yeah, that again is another thing which kind of kept me guessing at the beginning, like where is this trying to go? But yeah,
It probably reflects more accurately what would happen, especially like some of the stories that we've heard in America since in some of the ineptitudes of the police. And it could just be overload of information, loads of calls, they're saying different things, trying to parse it all out and just get in there. Also, I'm not sure what the resources like for the police. So,
you know what state that was in? Because where that bank was located, it looked very quiet. Yeah. So it's also down to the area as well, the response they would get. If it was like a big city like Central New York, the response would probably be a lot faster.
Yeah, I'll agree with it. Yeah.
Also, on your point with like wondering if the VA could have done more. Again, like just even from within the movie, you could see how packed that VA was, full of veterans. So probably the amount of resource to allocate the time to each of these individual complex cases as to is probably why they have the system the way it is because they're probably under-resourced as well to resolve these issues. And that's why they probably just push them back and try to resolve the most urgent ones or something like that. So again, it's one of those things you can see like every actor in the system probably they're overworked and under-resourced, and therefore it just has a knock-on effect, and eventually someone in that system will break.
That goes to the point where they shouldn't be under-resourced. That we should get more funding for this kind of stuff.
What's the thing? You would like to think with things like this happening, the system would be in a state of evolving over time. That's what you'd like to think, and you would even like to think that this man's death did have some kind of impact on the system, no matter how small, how big.
The likeliness it is that happened is very small.
Well, yeah, and that again is another sad thing. That's what is someone's life worth?
Can I ask,
again,
$100?
Can I ask, like, the negotiator, his name's Michael K. Williams, by the way. I thought he gave a really good performance, but
he always does.
Yeah, rest in peace for sure.
That was his last performance.
Yeah,
I think. Last
that's
one.
it, exactly. It is really sad how he went. But yeah, there was a part of the movie where he's talking to John Boyega's character, and he's obviously asking him what his motivation is. Why he's holding the bank hostage, and he tells him that I think the amount was like $892. And he's like, "Is that it?" And at that point, I was like, "Yeah, that's obviously it's about the principle, but." Because it's such a small amount of money to be going through all this trouble, putting his life on the line like that over such a small amount of money. Did you guys at that point think, oh, maybe this guy's just crazy?
No. It's more the case that when you're that broke,
if you have no money, $892 might as well be $1 million. Like if you're about to bug out onto the street, like.
Also, for the fact that it wasn't for him, it's for his daughter.
And also, he even says like on more than one occasion, he doesn't want the bank's money. When the character is
that's the other thing.
I'll give you the money. He says, no, I don't want your money. I just want what I'm owed.
But that's the thing. Like for him, it's not even about the money because you guys say, it's for his daughter, but he's just trying to make a point, and it's like if it was really about the money, this could have been resolved so much earlier on. You know what I'm saying?
He was trying to expose, and I think this is why he's saying I am gonna die here. His thing was he wanted to expose the issue with the system. That the VA wasn't going to do anything. He wants people to see them.
Says at the beginning that he
just wants the report to send everyone around. That's the main reason he told the reporters.
He said at the very beginning he just wants to be heard.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's the thing, because up until this point, he's felt so ignored and he doesn't matter. He's so unimportant that I think really truly it wasn't the money that he was seeking. It was literally just attention. He just wanted people to just witness him and just get that spotlight. I think that was
in a good way, that is, because sometimes when I hear people want attention, it sounds bad, but it's justified.
He wanted the attention for the situation he's in, and the others are in the same situation as him.
That's the thing, And I hope on that point, I hope that this movie does actually get seen and kind of noticed and makes waves, so that this injustice can be repaired, really, because obviously it needs to be lobbied. This whole thing with the VA, I'm sure this is not the only case. I'm sure there's hundreds of stories.
I doubt this is on higher than like it's not case. There's probably like Law said, there's probably a lot of situations probably due to under-resourcing where a lot of people slip through the cracks. And Estelle, the character, even talks about when she I think she went somewhere and she was speaking to, I think, homeless people, and she said, I've heard a lot of stories. People think that, you end up here through, just like normal means, but really it's things that are outside of your control that sometimes make you end up in that situation. So and I think that's what pushed the character and the man as well to take the action he did as well. It's that fact when he looks around the room at the VA, he sees that actually he's not the only one who is not being heard. It's not an isolated instance,
right? So he's doing it he's doing it for them, for the cause, isn't it? And he's even a poignant moment where he's like obviously trying to make that plea to the the lady in the VA office, and he's basically saying, I'm about to be homeless if I don't get this check, and like all she does is just hand him a pamphlet. It's like almost to say, well, sucks to be you.
Well, she's even her, like, she's like, you're looking at her character, and the first thing I thought is wow, like there's probably nothing she can even do, like at this point. You know what I mean? It's outside of her control as well, which is why I think you see that she did feel, some element of guilt, element of responsibility, just some kind of sense that she should be doing. She wanted to do something about it. But again, it's like people are in these situations, and the way the system works is that no one person can really make a difference against the system.
Because like she's probably got another 25 people queuing up that probably have similar circumstances, and all she could do, she's confined to her job role, really. And I think the issue is that I think this has always been a well-known issue, because the amount of veterans that come back and end up homeless is quite well known. It's very high, and it's so high they got leaflets for it in the VA. So like in terms of like homeless shelters and where they go, and it seems like no matter how many times people mention it, because people do talk about this issue quite a lot, there doesn't seem to be any sort of, I guess, political will to do more than provide lip service for the issue. Like, because there is a homeless issue in many parts of America, and a lot of those homeless people are ex-veterans and also have mental illnesses, and there's not really any sort of solution that's been thought of to try and solve the issue, really, in terms of, well, how do you treat them, where do you put them if they are mentally ill, where is the resource to actually put them in a mental facility and actually deal with them. It's a tricky issue, and because it doesn't affect enough people, it's not something that's ever likely to change without something major happening. And one ex-veteran dying isn't unfortunately going to change that, because they die all the time. Like, whether it's overseas or they come back here, it's just something that's meant to happen. It's one of those things. I remember like the Joker's quote is like, everything, no one bats an eyelid as long as everything goes to plan, even if the plan's horrible. Like, for example, if you say a soldier's going to die tomorrow, no one could care less. Like, I know it's not going to change anything, but if you said a politician was going to die tomorrow, then there'd be emergency calls or outrage, and something would be done straight away. Or when the royal wedding was happening, in this country, they try to make sure they got rid of all the homeless people out of that area to make it look nice for the rich people. It's just one of those things that as long as things are going according to the status quo, I don't think even if the status quo is horrible, unfortunately, I think it's not going to happen. And I think that sort of brick wall, that frustration is what drove him to do what he did.
Obviously, like, thinking back to it, even like what you were saying, it really does pull at the heartstrings, and it's just such a like tearjerker of a movie. It's just very sad, very sad, very sad. And as I said, hopefully, obviously, this can build up on that emotion and really show people how bad and how dire the situation is, and like, you know, things need to be done, because it's movies like this that really change people's minds, that really make people see how bad it is, because otherwise you don't really understand the situation, you don't understand the issues that are out there in the society. And you know, with obviously ex-vets, because they're pretty much helpless, and they just are unempowered, and they need somebody to kind of step in and give them that voice to really you know, to really explain this is a problem, you know, and it needs to be addressed. So it does it beautifully. It does it beautifully anyway, and I very much appreciate this movie for doing what it did.
100%.
Cool. All right, cool. Anyone got anything else they want to touch on about the film at all?
No, I mean,
I do want to say that I was surprised how nicely it was shot, because I didn't expect, because when I saw the poster and stuff, it just looked kind of generic-ish, and I didn't know what the story was about, obviously, at the time. But when the movie actually started, and there was some actually quite beautifully thought out shots and camera angles, and even the colors they chose were like,
the scenes are a lot brighter than the poster would have you think.
Yeah. So I appreciated that. It's always nice when people put more effort into something that they needed to, and it was really nice to watch.
I did notice with the directing, it is very much intimate. Like, you got a lot of close-up shots of like their expressions, and you know, kind of really kind of gives you the full spectrum of the emotions that each character is going through. So I thought they did a brilliant job in that respect as well, especially the end as well, because they don't. You guys notice how, like, obviously when the shot gets fired, you're kind of sitting in your seat thinking, oh, you know, did it hit somebody? Did it hit one of the hostages? Because like, obviously they're shaken, and then it kind of takes its time to unveil what has actually transpired in that moment, and they don't even show him properly. They just obviously show the So I thought that was a really smart kind of directing decision to kind of really play that out and kind of really drag out the moment.
And shout out their supporting cast as well, because I thought the two lady hostages, I felt their transformation throughout the situation from abject fear to unbelievable sympathy and empathy for John, for Brian Brown Easley, because you could see how scared they were in the moment, and over the course of that day, how they started to empathize with him after seeing what he's going through, and also understanding that he's not quite up there, which is also, they also started to identify that he had mental problems, as the audience were identifying that as well, and the fear that they were having.
Because there were a lot of chances for him to run away.
Yeah, they were, but and one wanted to, and the other was scared to trigger, and they didn't really understand both points.
I guess it's that conflict between obviously having that empathy for someone, but also being in fear for your own life, isn't it? One doesn't necessarily always trump the other, although arguably, you know, fear for your own life will always kind of trump at the end of the day. Nicole Bahari is, I think her name is, was Estelle, and Selena was Rosa Diaz. They done a really great job with a lot of the facial expressions and signals they were giving each other. And I think at the beginning, Estelle was the character a lot more calm. She seemed a lot more calm and composed, but as things went on, the empathy build, you actually started to see, you know, her fear start to kick in and her empathy kicking.
I think what you're seeing is her losing faith in the system, because from the start she's like, this has happened before, the police, they will come and do their thing, but as time's going on, there's no response.
Yeah, she's starting to lose faith as well.
Yeah. Good point.
Yeah. Cool. Sweet. Well, ready to go to final thoughts.
Final thoughts.
I'll kick us off. Okay. Rock, paper, scissors. I'll go real quick. I thought the movie was really good. Again, I didn't even know about the case of Brian Easley before seeing this movie, and after during watching it, a lot of emotional tone to me and kind of raised my level of awareness of the issue that vets face. It's sad that these things, at least I don't think these things always get the coverage they should do in the real world, like in the news and media. So I'm glad that this film was made to kind of show that side of their story. I think Boyega done a great job at playing the character, and like Lawrence said, the supporting cast done a fantastic job. And it was just, it seemed like as close to a real account as what happened as they could get. I can't even think of any ways that I would say the movie could have been better, because I think it was exactly what it needed to be. They held it as true as they could. I think I'd probably give the movie, I'll probably give it an 8, to be honest. A 7, I'll probably say 8, to be honest. Great film, succulent and juicy. Don't think that needed any improvement, and it's definitely going to leave me thinking about it afterwards, probably for a while. Probably even make me do some research into other instances just to raise my own level of awareness of this kind of issue and just be more aware of it for the foreseeable future. So hats off. I think it was a great film.
Next, I thought it was shot beautifully. Scenes were very precise. You knew what you're supposed to focus on. It brought up all the issues that it meant to, and it showed them really well. So obviously you empathize with Brian and hostages. You can see where the negotiator is coming from. You can also see the family worried. You see the conversations he's having with his daughter, but she's not quite fully understanding, but he's just talking to her, telling her he loves her. You can see that he's doing a lot of this just for her. The money's not the issue. If it was the money, he would have just taken it from the bank. And I think that's brought over well. It's not normally the type of film I go for, so for me, I'd still give it a 7. It was well prepared and presented, and it obviously brings to light a lot of issues that are going on with veterans in America. And I would actually look into this some more and see what's going on.
Cool. Yeah, for me, I mean, I'm actually just like racking my brain trying to think, is there any issues I had with this movie in particular? And to be honest, like, I can't really think of anything that comes to mind immediately. I mean, I don't know if enjoyed is the word I'd say. I guess it was more of like a suffering I was going through this movie, just really kind of putting myself in the shoes of the characters. And I think this movie did an excellent job making you feel what they felt, especially obviously Brian, the main character, and kind of seeing him unravel, but at the same time, being such a kind and good-hearted person throughout this whole ordeal. Trying to obviously make the experience for the hostages as comfortable. I don't know if you could say comfortable, but trying to make it as sort of fearful as he could. So I mean, I'd say this is one of those movies that I'll have in the back of my mind for many years to come. And obviously it's kind of raised awareness of this issue that I didn't really know about, and for that reason I think it's done its job really well. Obviously this film is a statement, and it is basically to say that obviously ex-vets are probably one of if not the most marginalized sort of demographic in this society, and it something that does need to be actually looked into and actually kind of given more political attention. But I would say this is a very succulent and juicy film. The directing is just incredible. Obviously everything you can see that everything was done with intention in terms of like the camera work, in terms of how the scenes the scenes play out, and again, fantastic performance by John, as well as all the rest of the cast members, but especially John Boyega. He really came through with this one and just really made you feel the intense emotions that this the real life person was due, and I'm glad that they decided to tell this story. So that's it for me. So what's that, an 8 out of 10?
Yeah. I can quickly go next, just real quick. So when I started off this movie, I didn't really know what to expect. I didn't know about the story, obviously. when it was suggested that we watch this, I admittedly kind of rolled my eyes. I was like, okay, it's just going to be like a generic kind of thing. But when I obviously saw it, when it first started, when the film started, and I noticed the shots that they were using and you know, they were showing the person playing the viola, the violin, all this kind of stuff. I was like, okay, they're actually like quite serious about this film. So as it went on, I got really into the film, into the characters. John Boyega absolutely smashed out of the park. Yeah, so this film, I'm just gonna say, it fully made me cry at the end. It really hit me very, very hard. So the fact that a film like that can hit you that hard, and like there's not a lot of films that would fully make me cry, and the fact that this one did, you know, just yeah, it's really hard to just think about.
No, I get you.
What happens, man?
No, it hit me that way, the same way.
Yeah. So yeah, I kind of lost my thought because it's kind of making me emotional a bit. But it's great film. I can say 8 as well, succulent and juicy. It definitely told the story it needed to, and I hope. I mean, I don't know if we'll make any changes because in this awful world we live in and all this kind of stuff. But I'm hoping the conversations continue so that one day, this doesn't happen as often. I hope.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah, I think to wrap things up, I thought this was a great movie. I thought it highlighted a very important problem that we do have in terms of the treatment of the armed forces when they return, or mistreatment, shall I say, and also showing how a system can generate bad outcomes without any individual bad actors in the system itself, which also highlights the tragedy of the whole thing, is that no one individual could have really done anything differently to change this outcome, really. It was all more about the structures that are already in place and how they work. I thought John Boyega's performance was fantastic. I've never seen him act this well in anything else. I've not watched a lot of his movies, so I can't speak too much, but I thought I completely sympathized with this character, empathized with him. It was quite tragic at the end when he was shot and taken out. And then after this movie made me want to actually find out more, because as I was saying before, a lot of these movies that are based on true stories do like to sensationalize this things to make it more entertaining for the audience. I can't say I'm glad that it was all actually based on a true story, because that's kind of quite sad. The story is quite sad in itself, but I think it done the right job in telling the story as it was without sensationalizing it, because I think if they'd had sensationalized it, it would have cheapened the story and the message. So I think all of the cast members I thought done very well, from the ex-wife to the show that she clearly still cared for him but couldn't be with him, to the hostages and to the negotiator as well, all trying to help him, but unfortunately it wasn't enough. And I think this story was told beautifully. So I would give it a 9 out of 10. Thinking good. I couldn't think of anything to improve. Even the slow start in the beginning, I thought was necessary to build up to make us understand a bit about what he's going through, without giving us the full story and making us infer certain things, and then delivering more of the information at the end of the movie. I think that was a brilliant way to tell the story, and it makes you think a lot more as well. So yeah, I'll give it a 9 out of 10.
Cool. One thing I'd say, only kind of gripe I had with it is the title is just so generic, and it's just like a cheesy action.
It was originally called 816, I think.
892, I don't know why.
Because that's the amount he was owed.
I don't know what that means.
That's the amount he was owed.
Oh yeah, of course.
Okay.
I guess even the title being generic, hearing the name of the title, I definitely get why you would think, this is just going to be a generic basic movie, but it really is just what it is, breaking. You know what I mean? Like, there's nothing more that needs to be said from the title. But I totally get what you mean. Man, it seems like we're all quite like up there with this one, with our thoughts and feelings on it. So more or less all in the same mind space.
Yeah.
Definitely. No, it does land a great impact. It's very, very, really well told story. So, oh man, no, I'm glad I watched it. Well,
definitely recommend it. Definitely recommend anyone
definitely recommend it,
to watch it, hands down.
But I probably wouldn't recommend it to everybody. Like, it's not gonna work for everybody, especially if you're someone who. What's that?
Oh, yeah.
There's certain people you'd recommend it to, not something you would, have a watch of this. Like, this is
because even Cam was saying this is not his type of film. So
but it is really good when you do what something which is normally outside of your norm and your comfort zone, and you still manage to take something away from it. So I think even if this isn't your type of film, I think take a risk, give it a try. If you switch it off, but it's worth taking the risk because the gains you get at the end definitely trump the risk of just putting it to the side straight away.
Yeah, definitely.
Agreed.
So there you have it, guys. That was our discussion on Breaking. I really hope you enjoyed the discussion. I know I did. There were a lot of good points raised about the movie, but also just thoughts, feelings, and opinions about the overall situation that Brian Brown Easley faced. And I suppose just the situation that ex-vets, ex-Marines face as well. So if you haven't seen the movie, definitely recommend checking it out. Until then, we'll see you next time for our next review/discussion. And if you want to support what we do, remember to just like, comment, subscribe. And yeah, till next time, take it easy.